Hello, all, and welcome to another thrilling recording of My Dog Will Eat My Face. I do have some health news that came my way just recently, but there's some debate between doctors as to how realistic that is or if that's really the case or not. So I'll talk about that more or less pretty briefly. And I think this week's podcast is gonna just be kind of brief, but there's one thing I want to talk about. And what I want to talk about is it's sort of like empathy, but more than that. Having the ability to see the world in another lens. It's an ability that I think has been bitterly crushed in a lot of at least the American people. I think it is a lot in the European community too. Actually, it's moved there, but it's not nearly as bad as in North America. But there's a severe limit to see things, as I said, through another lens. A better way to put it might be from the Cold War itself. It's best to study the ways of one's adversary. And a million people have said this, especially with respect to warfare or statecraft. I can quote Sun Tzu, I can quote George Patton, I could quote Clausewitz, I can quote all the way to Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger and beyond. There's been so many people in politics and war that have been aware of this. And so I think that's also been the case in a lot of people. And I think that's how a lot of people in countries like the United States, where it's a country not based on race, religion, origin, anything like that, language even. It's merely a country based on some basic principles that came out of Western European liberalism. And it was really the first country founded to take the risk and try to produce a country, a republic, based on those principles. And so I think understanding the world through other lenses is more crucial in countries like the United States because you have such a mix of peoples. I believe in the book, The Melting Pot, there was a quote that I always liked. I can't think of who the author was of The Melting Pot. I'm going to try to look that up now. You can tell this is all off the fly. I don't know who wrote that. Israel Zingwell, The Melting Pot, written in 1909. There's a great quote on the various peoples of the United States that says, "Here shall they, the people, all unite to build the Republic of Man and the Kingdom of God. Vera, what is the glory of Rome compared to the glory of America?" And that's, I think, an incredible principle that this country was founded upon. And yet, I think it's lost a lot of that in the last couple decades. And I think most people would agree. Considering this podcast is right before the next election, I don't know if you heard, but there's going to be a big election coming up in the United States. So there's a lot of fear that whoever the loser is, they're going to probably have a meltdown. And it could be really bad. It could be maybe nothing. Hopefully nothing. It could be really bad. I just want to talk about that today and what my thoughts are on the importance of being able to see the world through another lens. And it goes way beyond politique and war. It goes to how you manage yourself and your life and how you understand other people and how you get along with them and how you learn to appreciate them and what they do or what they create or what they say. I'm going to try to touch on that. But first of all, I'll touch on a stupid quick health update. Uh, it won't be long, I promise. So, the health update that I have moving forward is nothing too significant. I'm still suffering from the same old, same old. However, I did meet with my doctor's nurse practitioner with respect to my very recent symptoms where I was basically losing consciousness, dropping my phone, basically whatever I was carrying, and just losing consciousness and going down, and unable to text. I was at the time texting with friends and family, and it was normal, and then it devolved into gibberish that I'd try to write it 5 times, and all 5 times, it just like was nonsense. And so I first went to lay down and then called my hospice service and asked for a nurse visit right away, telling them what's going on. So I did the right thing. And it did get better. But when I did see the nurse practitioner, she had a different opinion than my nurse and doctor. Whereas my nurse and doctor thought it was of the same symptoms that I've been having, the heart's weakening. And as a result of that, these symptoms came really after a large meal, honestly. So I was basically having a food coma on steroids because my body was pushing the blood to the stomach and it was doing it at the expense of the heart and lungs. And so I was losing my mind and falling down and passing out. That was their theory. But my NP's theory was different. She thought it was actually more likely a minor stroke. And the reason for her saying that is that all the symptoms I described matched that. And considering I have a protein C deficiency, which is a genetic disorder wherein your blood has issues with clotting, it will just seemingly clot randomly and sometimes completely occlude blood vessels, making them, well, not work. I've got both my femoral arteries have been completely occluded. One is gone; it's been completely reabsorbed by the body. The other one, you can still see it on a scan, but it's completely occluded, and you can tell it's starting to be absorbed by the body. And my body has created these circumference vessels and loops around where the femoral artery is supposed to be, this big web of small blood vessels to deliver blood flow to my legs so I can still walk. My body just did that on its own. So, yeah, I've got a totally unique anatomy, literally. It's not an exaggeration. My anatomy is not like any other human beings on this planet. I've got stuff my body's doing that no, they've never seen before. And I'm not making that up. There's papers on it. I'm not named in it by name, thank God. But there's been multiple papers on it over the course of decades that I've actually seen some of them. I didn't understand them because they were medical papers, but I've seen some. Anyway, so there's some debate there whether it was a minor stroke or a blood flow issue, but I suppose it doesn't really matter because both those are the result in the same thing, which is that a blood flow issue. And probably the origin of my pulmonary hypertension and then my congestive heart failure is from the protein C deficiency. That's my own personal theory. They just didn't know what that thing was, a protein C deficiency was when I was born. That came out. They discovered that decades later and found out, yep, I had it. And again, that's a thing where your blood clots a little bit too, not a little bit too much, quite a little bit too much, and can sometimes completely occlude blood vessels and make them not work. And when they're not working and they're not receiving blood, they get destroyed and reabsorbed by the body. Or you have an embolism, or you die, or both, or all three. I've done two. I've had a pulmonary embolism. I thought those were 100% fatal. I guess they're 99.99% fatal because I did survive it. That blows my mind. So I did have a pulmonary embolism. So honestly, also a minor stroke would not be that surprising either. And it really doesn't matter what it is, whatever caused it. It's kind of it's more or less the consequence of the same issues, the same origin, the lack of blood flow, my weak heart. It can't keep up with it. So that's the only news I really have at this time from the medical universe. I'm getting along. I'm still alive, and I don't have any plans right now of checking out. But the day is young. We can wait and see. Uh, yeah, I just have to go back to good old Horace, who said, "Happy is the man, and he alone, who, secure within, can say, 'Tomorrow do thy worst, for I've lived today.'" I've known that quote by Horace for many decades now, actually, and I've lived by it. Tomorrow do thy worst, for I've lived today. All right, now with the topic of seeing people and the world through another lens, this honestly would easily be a 4 to 20 hour topic to discuss because I think it is extraordinarily complex and also extraordinarily misunderstood and lacking in North America and a little bit in Europe. They're better at it because they had to be. And that was so true in America for many, many years. We were good at it because we had to be a country of immigrants. But that too has devolved. And now we've got just bitter bipolar parity in the United States, where there's even talk of a second civil war around the corner. There's a movie. And I really do think it comes from the lack of understanding the world through other people's lenses. There was an old saying in Britain that was, "Those who only know England don't know England." And I believe that to be true. What that idiom is saying is that if you only know your own home, your own country, and you haven't been, visited, learned about, or lived in any other place, then you cannot possibly know your own home because you have nothing to compare it to. It's in a vacuum. North Koreans think they live in the best country in the world. They live in a vacuum. They live in a wow, I can't talk. They live in a wow! They live in a dictatorship. My goodness. I had too many vodka Red Bulls or something. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, they only know North Korea. They call it Korea, or DPRK, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Very humorous name. But they can't know anything about other countries other than what's fed to them. And they're not allowed to travel except for the elites. They don't have the internet. They have no other sources. They can only read things about their great leaders. They have to post great leader portraits in every home and apartment. And a lot of them really do think they actually live in the best country in the world. They believe people in the United States are starving to death of famine and killing each other over food and stuff like that. They literally believe that because their nation has told them that. They make movies there about it. Some of them are really funny, and some of them are actually some amazing taekwondo. Because these are kids that probably were picked at the age of 2 to be taekwondo masters, and so they do some amazing martial arts in some of their movies. Yes, I've watched some North Korean movies, and the only value there is the amazing taekwondo these guys do. Other than that, the rest of it is just hilarious. It is totally hilarious. Anyway, moving on. So I think the lack of understanding other people, however which way you come to that understanding, it can be made in many different ways. You can learn about it. You can visit these people. You can interact with them. You can live with them. That's the most extreme, through immersion. That's the most extreme and quickest and most effective way to learn about a different people and their views. But you could also stay home and read a lot about it on the internet and get some understanding at least. It's not perfect. It's not as quick as immersion, but anyone can really sit down and try to learn about the other side. And has anyone in our country done that with respect to the other side politically in our country in recent years? I really don't think so. And have they made any attempt to learn about other countries to compare it to this one? Honestly, no. Yeah, obviously. There's some great programs out there and people that travel. I mean, when I was a student, I traveled the world as part of a student ambassador program. I've been all over the world with that. I went to a high school in Coffs Harbour, Australia, and had a private apartment above a family's home in Tulln, Austria. I woke up every morning with the neighbor's donkey going off. Hated that donkey. God. So I have stayed briefly with these people. I also stayed with a family in Hungary. Spent one Fourth of July going to Lake Balaton. That was fun. I don't think people in North America and the United States in particular have made any efforts recently to try to understand the other side. And it might not be a point where you walk away from it and you say, you are totally wrong, because that absolutely happens. I could say I can go to North Korea and understand how they live and come back home and say, wow, they're whacked. But I don't really feel like nuking them because they're so cute kids and stuff there. It wasn't a snowball fight with them. Come on. You get this empathy with them as people. They're just people. And so this visceral anger and hate of the other side is hard to have when you know them, when you interact with them, even though you blatantly disagree with them. For example, there was one time that I marked in my memory where I said, this is amazing. I was sitting on a park bench in a small plaza in Budapest, in Hungary, with a Hungarian guy, a friend of mine there, and we were right outside the U.S. Embassy there in Budapest. So the American flag was there. And we actually had a what's the word I'm thinking of? Very vocal, unflinching debate about Stalin, Joseph Stalin. This Hungarian individual was actually trying to point out the good qualities of Stalin and Eastern Europe and Russia. I was, of course, saying the bad qualities, and we were arguing, but we weren't arguing like, grr. We were just having kind of a discussion, a debate. Sure, it got heated once in a while, but I thought to myself, my God, here I am in Budapest, Hungary, right outside the United States Embassy debating about whether or not Stalin was good or evil with a Hungarian general. What a wonderful privilege that is. And it is. That's what I saw it as. I didn't see. I mean, he was defending Stalin and had good points. I can't argue there. He did have some good points. There were things that he was trying to do that were higher priority than feeding his own people. Honestly, it was brutal, but he did things for reasons, and he made some things really good. But it was truly a privilege to be able to sit there and have a discussion and a friendly debate about something as high as that in Eastern Europe after the wall came down. And then we could still afterwards get up and go have dinner together. That to me is what understanding the optics of the other side should basically be like. You don't have to agree on everything, but you should try to understand, and you might come out of it thinking that they're completely psychotic. But maybe that's the wrong word. You might come out of it thinking they're terribly misguided. How about that? But at least you had a discussion. The problem I think we have now is there's no discussions between the sides, between the aisles. There's no working together. People walk away. People cancel. I mean, canceling people these days. What a horrible concept, I think. Let the worst opinions reign free. I want to know who the jerks are. I want to know who the bigots are. Thank you. I don't want them to keep to themselves because I don't want to work with them or deal with them or be their buddy. Let him go. Let him reign free. All the bad opinions, the good opinions, the ideas of the Western liberalism that was behind the founding of this country should hopefully still prevail over that. Milton Friedman once said, "One correct opinion outvotes any majority." There might be some hubris in that, but that was his opinion, and maybe it was the right one. But today, there's very little understanding and interaction between peoples in the United States in understanding their world in a different lens. You don't have to agree with it, you don't even have to enjoy it. But understanding it and understanding beyond that, even more so, they're just people like you and your family. It all makes a huge difference. And I sadly just I've not seen that sort of thing in the United States since probably 9/11. In the few years after that, lately, last few decades, there's been very little discourse between the two sides of any value. And now there's the canceling culture, so we don't even allow the people that are vocalizing errant opinions to do so. I say we should let them. I want to know who they are, and then I shall make that decision on my own whether or not I want to keep listening to them or not. I don't need to have my hand held by a technology company or a government. That should be my own decision, and I should have the ability to make that decision by at least trying to have some level of understanding what they're saying and their view of the universe to their own. So, as I said already, this is a huge topic, and I'm not sure what the solution exactly is. Except people have got to stop putting up these barriers of communication. I think cancel culture is horrendous. I think free speech should be allowed. And each of us should make a decision on whether or not we agree with that opinion or not. I want to know who has nasty. I want to know who has good opinion. And I want to know how they see the world because maybe if I come to that understanding and can see it through their lens, I might maybe just be able to work with them and God forbid be friends with them. That's the thing too is I have traveled the world. I've been to countries that are generally not the best on the State Department's list of countries Americans should visit. I was a guest of the state and the People's Republic of China and had minders the whole time, and it was hosted by the People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries. And if you look that up, I know it's a mouthful. People's Association of Friendship with Foreign Countries is a facade from the Ministry of State Security, or MSS in China, to conduct human intelligence and to swing the opinions of elite Americans to be pro China. So I guess I'm elite. That's a good thing. I'll put that on my resume. But yeah, I even still have the business card. I got a certificate of completion or of attendance or something like that from a conference that I went to that they hosted, and I still have it. I need to put that up on the wall. But that's just it. I went to a communist country that not that far along it back rolled tanks down Tiananmen Square. I went to that square. Well, everyone goes there. It's a big central square. It's Tiananmen just means heavenly peace, quite ironically, when there's a tank in it. But yeah, it was absolutely a communist dictatorship. Now, I could have been a Putz American, and, just, I don't know, go out there and be like, grr, I hate the Reds. I don't know, like Joe McCarthy from back in the days. But I wouldn't get very far, would I? I wouldn't be able to make a good dinner order or make a friend or have a conversation with someone. But that's just it. When you're there and you see the world through their lens, even if they are your adversary. And they are the adversary of the United States, absolutely. And I am not in any means swayed away from that. In fact, I was almost held there against my will and I had to escape the country to get home. It was quite the nightmare. But I absolutely had to understand the world from their lens and be able to at least talk to them and appreciate that these are people. They're just people. And I can talk and joke with them and break bread with them, make relationships or friendships with them. I think that's what's severely lacking. I think Europe is somewhat lacking that now through the EU and the I think it's got a little better, honestly. I think Merkel was a little overbearing, but nicely with the other EU countries. But yeah, I'm worried, so to speak, that at least in the United States, that it has gone so far into having no empathy for the other side and to not even want to see the world through another lens. That it's come to this point of polarization, and now we're here talking about a second civil war. And I did see the movie made this year called Civil War. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, though. I'm just kidding. That was a terrible joke because it's about to start another civil war. Basically, it's a movie about a new civil war in the United States. And it doesn't really talk about what the causes are. There's some references to things, but it more depicts the country falling apart like. And I came away from that movie feeling really depressed, to be honest. I came away from that movie thinking, this can't happen. We can't allow this to happen. It just hit me that way very hard. And when I watched the director's comments or meaning behind it or whatever, that was entirely the intent of the director of that film, was for you to come away with that thinking, oh my gosh, that's terrible. We can't let this happen. And I think that comes to the final point here, is that no matter what happens in the election, whether you're going to take time to see the world through another lens or not, we really can't let a civil war happen. And we have to start seeing the universe and the world through these other people's lenses on every side. If you only know England, you don't know England. Remember that. And there's even a better old quote that people have often referred to with respect to this. That is, für den Triumph der Bosen lag des, then die Guten nicht tun. That's Edmund Burke, who wrote that in the 18th century. I'm sure you can translate it yourself from German. I'm just kidding. What it means is the only thing necessary for the evil to win is for good men to do nothing. I'll repeat that. The only thing necessary for evil to win is for good men or ladies to do. We're all responsible, all of us. If something goes sideways after this election, don't look at the other side and say it's just their fault. It's probably all. No raindrop thinks it's responsible for the entire flood. All of us will have a shared responsibility. And I've traveled the world. I would say I know my country, and I know where I live, and I know it pretty darn well, because I've been in places that are very, very different and looked at the prism of the world through many other, which has brought me to some very unpopular opinions about various international topics, which I'm not going to get into because it would make everyone furious, probably. I have some very different, so to speak, opinions about a lot of international issues right now that are not mainstream. And I think a lot of people would freak out if they heard that. But it's because I've taken the time to look at the world through other lenses. And in a lot of these cases where these things are going down, these problems are occurring, I've been there. I know people there. I knew people there. I have memories of that place, those people, the time I spent there, whatever. I don't want still to just kill them. My God. But I know what my country is. I know what I want. And it's just those essential Western liberal ideas that were framed in the Constitution. That's what I want. Hopefully, we can all agree on. The good news is, if we don't all agree, we can make an amendment to change. The Constitution can be amended, as you well know. So, if we look at things through a lens together and come to the conclusion that one of these amendments are incorrect or a new amendment should be drafted, then by all means, we should move forward with such an event. But the last thing we should ever do is nothing. If you do nothing on the 5th of November and the following days to come, you're allowing evil people do whatever they, and you share in that responsibility, no matter who you are. Again, no raindrop thinks it's responsible for the entire. We all share a responsibility to do things for the good and to oppose. No matter what happens, I hope we can all keep that in So, my good friends, if you've made it this far in this podcast, I applaud you and thank you dearly for giving me an opportunity to share my opinion with you and my voice. I know a lot of this today deviated, I guess, from the central topic, but sometimes that's really good. After all, I use this podcast as my personal journal. These are just my thoughts. Maybe one day I'll be brave enough to share my thoughts on some international incidents right now. That would not be very popular. And yeah, and it's based on history and understanding what these people had and what they went through and all that kind of stuff. So you wouldn't understand it coming from Kansas, okay? But if you took the time to learn about whatever area there's a conflict, about the people, about their differences, what they believe, and see the world through those lenses, at least have that ability to, you don't have to agree, God, then and only then would you be able to craft, well, truly any opinion that is informed, and two, at least some empathy so when you hear an opinion you don't agree with, you don't immediately want to shoot them in the face. Because I don't want to be shot in the face if I share an opinion people don't agree with. Anyway, I will wrap this episode up now at this time. And I just wanted to thank you for listening in. You can support the podcast by just going to its homepage on Spotify and click on support this podcast. Or just even easier, go to patreon.com/my dog will eat my face. How can you forget that? And you can just drop a quick shekel of appreciation. And then you get some more stuff. Not a lot, but you'll have direct communication with me. You can ask me questions, I can talk to you. And there's also pictures and videos on there of things that are going on in my life. So if you're the stalker type, it's interesting. But if you've listened this far, you've already given me all I could ask, which is your time to hear my disjointed ramblings of a madman like I am. The sad truth of it is every time I publish a podcast, there is a chance, a decent chance, that those may be my last words. I just realized that. That's dark, but it's true. So yeah, no pressure on me to not say something stupid, right? Anyway, in all seriousness, thank you so much for listening. I wish you well. Be sure to do good, as it is your responsibility. Try to break down these barriers and see and understand the world through the eyes of your adversaries. And maybe we can avoid catastrophe and keep this world a decent place, or hopefully even improve it forever. But alas, I shall go for now. Not sure if I will publish a podcast next week right on the election. It might be the following week or shortly after to kind of see how things in the world pan out. Want to, check my windows around my place to make sure I don't see any mushroom clouds on in the distance. Things like that. So that might be off or delayed, but either way, I shall try to publish something again later. But ciao for now.